Hello, this is Cryptolyze. I hope you are well. This Tuesday, 28 November 2023. We meet today to talk about FLUX, an important crypto in the notion of DePIN. DePIN being the decentralized infrastructure that could be a narrative for 2024 for 2025 for the next bull run. Very important to understand the interest of FLUX, understand what revolves around it, and you will see that it is very interesting. As usual, we will dissect this video into two parts. A fundamental part, we will come back to what FLUX is, and the interest of FLUX in the blockchain ecosystem, and then a more technical part in which we will go over the graphs to project short, medium, long-term on purchase prices, sale prices, and that begins right away. As a reminder, you always have the possibility of having free access to the educational course, which is a 60-hour training worth €400, which allows you to learn blockchain, crypto, investment, analysis technique, trading, everything to become profitable. Through 130 videos, 400 pages of guides, quizzes, to find out where you are in your progress, and all for free. To have access to this lifelong training, simply use the platform of one of our partners. Everything is explained in the comments and descriptions. You may have never wondered how the website you usually go to is hosted or works. But there are some people who dream that it will no longer be on the servers of Google, Amazon, or other large centralized servers. FLUX allows you to have another decentralized solution. It is not the only one to offer this type of service, but it is one of the most advanced in the field of decentralization of cloud computing, in which we really find ourselves in cloud computing as a service in a decentralized and completely anonymous. This is a big advantage, and it's based on blockchain. This is the principle of DePIN, of decentralized infrastructure, and it is also the idea behind the construction of Ethereum in general, in which Ethereum is the global, shared, and decentralized computer, in which a contrario, FLUX rather, is in itself the decentralized infrastructure. So these are two things which are separate, but which are at the same time very close in conception and in ideology. And it is important to know that the majority of large sites and all sites almost throughout the world are hosted in a handful of data centers, in a handful of providers, and in fact we have a huge form of centralization taking place there. Due to the complexity of managing costs on this type of infrastructure, it's very, very expensive, and it's very complicated to maintain. And that's why we generally have a form of centralization to free up and reduce the costs to be able to offer cheaper services initially then. Given that we are the leader, we can start to increase the prices because we are the only one who can offer, for example, a guarantee almost at 100, which is the case from Amazon on this side. Next, we find ourselves with FLUX. FLUX, therefore, which is the same ideology except that it is totally decentralized. The goal is to make available what? Computing power, storage, and RAM available to anyone who wants to run site code or whatever you want to do. And precisely they have built their notion of OS, which is FLUX OS, which allows them to be able to directly host applications or websites and to be able to pay the person necessarily, which hosts and which executes, and alongside being able to offer at low cost precisely a robust infrastructure which will also be shared, in which we will have everything that is necessary to be able to move forward, in which we will have redundancy, security, interoperability between the different technologies that exist, notably Docker, and even interoperability as we can see here on the different blockchains. So this way I want to carry decentralized applications. On any blockchain I can do it very easily, and in which I will have decentralization and above all a low cost. Costs which are still very low. So I am currently considering one of the companies bringing the servers to another provider, and I think that I will test on some of the FLUX servers, and I will provide feedback on the use of this. Besides, they have changed their image quite a bit. This is the new image, this is the old one. We have something which is much more worked, with really something which is focused around the Web3. But not only that, because when we look at the volume that we currently have, it's to give you an idea. I put both to clearly show you the difference in evolution between the two. We went to 11,000, almost 12,000 nodes, especially 240 terabits of RAM, which in GT is huge. I mean, we pretty much did X5 compared to what was there. Cores, CPUs, we almost moved to X8. And on SSDs, we completely did X7, X7.5. So we are really in something that is expanding. So there are more and more people offering their server. Yes, now the question is, do we have more and more users? That unfortunately I don't have the metric yet. I searched. I'm in the process of searching. If you ever have any information, don't hesitate to comment. I will be happy to share this information on Twitter and also in the next video. But in any case, Flux shows that DePIN, in any case, is trying to evolve, and that this could well be a next narrative. The question is, okay, but are there clients for that, other than in Web3? And how can we give visibility to this type of project? In Web 2, namely that it is something that is cannibalized by Amazon services, by Google services, or even Azure, so it is. Microsoft. Therefore, giants who cannibalize everything through their marketing, and GT, by their pricing and their quality of service. Are we at the equivalent? Wouldn't there be a notion of fear in relation to that? Because it's decentralized, because it's not a giant, because they have no one to turn against. And yes, that plays a huge role, but in any case it should be noted that it's a sector that is booming, and that in fact technologies allow us to offer services like that, and I think that this is only the beginning. That we risk having other elements that will arrive, and perhaps even an ease of accessibility, which would be necessary for the adoption of the DePIN, and perhaps a next narrative for a next bull run. And GT. So we're going to attack the technical part in which we still have quite a few things available. We're just going to clean up the graph a little bit in passing, in which we had an acceleration phase on the first bull run, so from 2021, probably with November 2021. So big acceleration at the end of the bull run because we had the first, which was quite weak, second breathing, and then we had the implementation here of a distribution which ended here in a break and GT. Bearish. And this distribution, what is interesting to see is that it gave birth to an accumulation which lasted for a long time since June 2022. We held a level on Flux which was very long, in which here it is Celsius, and we see that we maintained this level despite FTX, which was rather positive for Flux. And behind, on the other hand, we made a bearish breakout with here the impact of the SEC, and we are coming back above the SEC, in which we have an SC, an ST, and an STB in agreement, and GT. So taking liquidity, setting up resistance to consolidate liquidity, taking liquidity, bullish reaction following the taking of liquidity, which is rather positive to know that we had very little volume in September-October 2023 in terms of Flux, despite the fact that we had a convention that went rather well. It's this candle that we see. Inevitably, when we have conventions, we have announcement effects and people who precisely manipulate the price and take a huge profit. And there we have a very beautiful construction which is being done with a potential consolidation this week above from the SEC level. This is something that we absolutely want to have to validate this upward acceleration. So moreover, we made a break of structure which was validated here, therefore rejection of the retest of the candle. With this red candle that is there, we are going to retest the breakout zone and we are doing the bullish acceleration, which is very positive. On the other hand, we left something which is important. We left an imbalance which is located here, in which in addition it corresponds to the rupture zone of this candle. So it is possible to go and do a retest in the 0.34, so there is a lot to watch out for, especially in this candle. We will see the closing of this week. But in this candle, we still have here a real absorption of the bullish volumes. A large part here to take profit. Don't forget. Not that the streams are used as a reward for miners, which allows for very low fees for users, but therefore it also implies that the stream is to be sold to reimburse infrastructure costs and those who own the nodes, and which simply run the sites and applications which are hosted in Flux. So there we also have a big acceleration because we have had a lot of news. We have an 11th Flux which has been instantiated, which is the Flux based on Base and therefore Coinbase, and which is very important because we know that Coinbase will be widely used by institutional investors or large companies to have means of payment in crypto, and therefore that means that we could have a lot of Flux linked to that. So we have the two which converge with the break of the bullish level, plus the news which gives acceleration. But we see that there is a large part which is bought back, and it is a level which is very important. Here the SEC is the level in which we must consolidate. If we consolidate above, that implies that there we would have the capacity to be able to get these inducements there. So these are the liquidity tops which have been completely repurchased. This is not the structure. It is really the incentive for liquidity. The top of the structure is very high. It is here above the 1. And this is what must be broken in the long term. As long as we do not break that, in this case, we do not have a real break of structure. We must break this level to then do a breath on a consolidation and then accelerate. And that's what we're going to look for if we ever want to expose ourselves to FLUX in a much more serene way. It's waiting for a break of structure, waiting for a signal to be able to follow the course. And for those who are much more aggressive, we keep in mind the low levels in which we could look for the 0.33. In terms of targets, what can we set at the FLUX level? So already I think that the first level, which will be very important, it will be the breakup of the 2, okay? There, we clearly have a lot of people who are locked out. We have a lot of people who are on exposure in this area, and I think that we will have a big sell-off that will take place. And when we look, it's already an X5 zone, so we will have TPs that will take place. So it's normal that we have a breather there, and I think it's a very good zone to do a partial TP to consolidate your position. The second thing is that we could aim for a big wave. One big wave 2 Elliotist with a narrative around DPIN, and a FLUX that manages to create momentum around Web 2 to attract customers, at which point we could look for a target of 1,618 for a big wave. 3 for FLUX, with a FLUX in the vicinity of 5. On the other hand, don't forget that the FLUX is used as a reward and therefore necessarily at a downward pressure, which is constant precisely because it is used as an GT. Incentive to have people who operate nodes, who offer services to attract customers. This is the very concept of FLUX. It is the very concept of any software to service or infrastructure to service. If we don't have a client, then we don't have a business model. Never forget it. I hope you liked this video. If so, don't forget to leave me a like and a comment. It supports the channel. It always makes me very happy, and we'll see you tomorrow 7 for the daily, where we return to the news and analyze BTC tomorrow 7.